Hey boys and girls, good morning. Monday morning math, that's a way to start your day. Hey, just before we get started, I wanted to just really quickly tell you guys how much I truly miss you. I miss seeing you every day. I miss saying hello to you every morning. I miss your hugs. I miss your smiles. I miss a billion questions a day, or how many times I hear my name in one day. I miss everything. And I just want you to know that this time that we have it apart, I miss you guys so much. All right, so let's get started. I have a question for you. Do you like spaghetti and meatballs? I love spaghetti and meatballs. In fact, now that I think about it, I think I might even make it for dinner this week. I love spaghetti and meatballs. And when I make spaghetti and meatballs, I make a big pot of spaghetti and meatballs. And I normally like to have lots of family and friends over. Can't do that right now, but I have a little story for you. So let's get started on our math for today. This week we are doing area and perimeter, which is something we have already done, so it should be super simple for you. Here we go. All right. So here's the math for this week. Turn this light off because that's too bright. No, it's not working either. Oh well, it is what it is. All right, so here is the math for this week really quickly. Make sure that you do not press the turn in button until you have completely finished your math for the whole week. My husband is dancing right now. He was trying to make me laugh. Woo! Get him. All right. So make sure that you do not turn in your math until you have completely finished it for the whole week. So that's not any different than it has been. Okay. I'm trying to find something to put this on so that I can get a little bit better. Okay. And then I did add this slide because I wanted you guys to be aware that you can turn in your work early. All right, so I have, if you want to finish the entire week and turn it in before Friday, you may. That way I can look at it early and return it to you in case you forgot something or if you need to make some changes. Think of it like this. When you guys are working in class, I'm walking around and I'm checking, and I'll walk by and say, hey, I'm going to take a look at number 7, and I'll let you know if you got it right or wrong, or I'm going to look at number 14 to make sure you're on the right track. So kind of think of it like that. If you turn it in to me before Friday and there's a problem with it, let's say you have left a page blank or you got all the answers wrong on the very last page for the week, then I can get it to you really quickly, get it back to you, return it to you, and tell you what it is that you're missing or what it is that you need to do, okay? It's kind of like if you were to just about to go to turn in your work and I were to check it really quickly before you put it in the turn-in tray. But if you wait until the last minute on Friday, which is Friday at 3 o'clock to turn it in, it is what it is, okay? I can send it back to you, and if you have missed a whole page, you've missed a whole page, and then that will get counted off. So if you turn it in early before Friday, I can check it and return it to you, and if you need to redo something, you can, and that way you can make sure that you get a better grade. Okay. All right, so for this week, we are working on area and perimeter. Now, area and perimeter is something we have done before, okay? I thought I would just quickly show you in our math notebook. Here's our math notebook. We were doing perimeter just before we left. It literally is the last two things that we did before we left. We were doing perimeter. Remember when we learned it in class, I'd have you say perimeter so that you could say the word rim. That was on the 2nd. And then on the 5th was when we did area. Okay, so we did all of this before we left. And we went to that Austin trip on Friday. And then we were off for spring break, and now we've been home for a long time. But we have done all this before. This is nothing that is going to be new for you, okay? All right. So remember the 9 critical traits of thinking. When you are thinking and figuring things out, you're either examining it, communicating in some way, inquiring, striving, reflecting, linking, creating, adapting, or collaborating. There'll be several questions about that. This obviously is the page that you had to click on in order to watch the video today. Be sure you are working on your DMP. I am wondering how many many people are actually doing that because I put a hidden question in last week's DMP. And so far, and I'm doing this video on Friday the 16th or 17th, whatever today is the 17th. I've only had one person respond that they found my hidden question in the DMP. So I'm thinking there's not a lot of kiddos who are doing that, and that is not good. All right. So this is what it is that you'll be doing today, the assignment we'll be doing today together. But before we do that, we are going to listen to a little story. All right, I'm going to have to get something to hold this up. Sorry, I probably should have done that. So if you'll wait just 1 second. Let's see if that works. It's not awesome, but it'll do. Okay, so we are going to read a story. The story is called Spaghetti and Meatballs for All. Let's try. Oh, that is so much better. Okay, Spaghetti and Meatballs for All. Here we go.
A mathematical story by Marilyn Burns. Remember, it has to do with optimizing perimeter and area. Won't seem like it though while we're reading. One fine day, Mrs. Comfort was busy tending the lettuce patch in her garden. You know, it's been a long time since we've seen the family, she said to her husband. You're right, answered Mr. Comfort. He was stretched out on a bench, doing what he liked to do best in a vegetable garden, reading a cookbook. Maybe it's time for a family reunion, Mrs. Comfort said. A wonderful idea, Mr. Comfort agreed. Let's see, menus, dinner for two, serves 4 to 6, banquets. How many people would we be having, he asked. The Comforts called their children. They called their parents. Mrs. Comfort called her brother. Mr. Comfort called the next-door neighbors, who were almost like family. Everyone could come. That's 32 people altogether, including us, Mr. Comfort said. What could possibly fit in our oven and still feed 32 people? He wondered out loud. Why not make your famous spaghetti and meatballs, asked Mrs. Comfort. Good thinking, said Mr. Comfort. Now, what about renting some tables and chairs, asked Mrs. Comfort. She got out the telephone book. 2 weeks later, the big day arrived. Mr. Comfort got up very early and spent all morning cooking. He baked 16 loaves of garlic bread and made 8 pounds of fresh pasta. He simmered 8 quarts of spaghetti sauce and rolled 96 meatballs. Mrs. Comfort picked all her ripe tomatoes, cucumbers, and lettuce for salad. While Mrs. Comfort waited for the tables and chairs she had rented, she drew a seating plan. Then she got out the dishes, the silverware, the glasses, the tablecloths, and some vases. But when the rental company arrived, they were 1 chair short. Don't worry, said Mr. Comfort. You'll think of something. Mrs. Comfort found a folding chair. Now the tables were ready. Each had 4 place settings, 4 chairs, and a vase with lovely cut flowers. Mr. Comfort came out of the kitchen balancing 8 plates of celery and olives, 1 for each table. Just after noon, the Comfort's daughter and her husband arrived with their 2 children. Welcome, said Mrs. Comfort. Come, sit, said Mr. Comfort. Let's push 2 tables together so you can sit with us, suggested the Comfort's daughter. But there won't be room, Mrs. Comfort said. But there is, said Mr. Comfort. There's plenty of room and plenty of garlic bread. Everyone was just about to sit down when a car pulled into the driveway. Mrs. Comfort's brother and his wife, their daughter, her husband, and their...
All right, so think for just a second. What is the problem with what is going on here? Mrs. Comfort had set out the tables and the chairs perfectly to fit 32 people, and now her husband has started moving them around.
Twin sons all spilled out. Welcome, said Mr. Comfort. Sit down, sit down. Oh, let's push over 2 more tables so we can all sit together, said Mrs. Comfort's brother's wife. The Comfort's daughter and her husband got up to help. But that won't work, said Mrs. Comfort. You're so right, Mr. Comfort said. We'll have to push 2 more tables together. But that won't work either, said Mrs. Comfort. You're right, said Mrs. Comfort's brother's wife. Make way! Shouted Mrs. Comfort's brother and the Comfort's son-in-law. They each carried over a table and put them side by side. You don't understand, Mrs. Comfort sighed. My plan was... But no one heard her. Everyone was too busy. Save some of that garlic bread for me, a new arrival called. Me too, me too, me too. 3 more voices piped in. Well, look who's here, said Mrs. Comfort's brother's daughter's husband. It was the Comfort's next-door neighbors with their daughter and son. Hello, hello, said Mr. Comfort. So glad to see you. Have a seat while I get more garlic bread. But there is no place for them to sit, said Mrs. Comfort. Don't worry, said Mrs. Comfort's brother's wife. We'll just divide these tables into 2 groups of 4. Go ahead, Mrs. Comfort said, but I'm telling you, when... You fret too much, said Mr. Comfort. Bread, anyone?
There's a book on YouTube that I'm videotaping as the lady's reading it.
When all of the tables had been rearranged, everyone sat down. See, Mom, the Comfort's daughter said. It worked out just fine. Mrs. Comfort sighed. Hiya, 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 boomed a familiar voice. Mr. Comfort's father, mother, and their little terrier strolled in. Hello, Grandma, hello, Grandpa, the Comfort's daughter shouted. Oh, dear, said Mrs. Comfort. Where are they going to sit? No problem, said Mr. and Mrs. Comfort's next-door neighbor. If we just push all 8 tables into one long line, there'll be room enough for everyone. Actually, Mrs. Comfort began to explain. Absolutely, said Mr. Comfort. He was carrying several big bowls of salad. Better move fast or this salad will be really tossed. No sooner had everyone gotten settled than Mrs. Comfort's mother and father drove up in their yellow convertible. Hello, Grammy. Hello, Gramps, the Comfort's daughter shouted. Mrs. Comfort put down her fork. Oh, dear, she said. Don't worry, we're all family, right? Gramps said. Let's just split this long line of tables in 2. There will be plenty of room for us to squeeze in. But it still isn't going to work because, Mrs. Comfort started to say, a bowl of salad slid into her lap. Sorry, said one of Mrs. Comfort's brother's daughter's twin sons. Wait, you're all forgetting something, said Mrs. Comfort. We're out of salad over here, the Comfort's daughter said. Don't put any tomatoes in mine, said the Comfort's next-door neighbor's son. Is there more garlic bread? Asked Mrs. Comfort's mother. Who's got my silverware? Asked Mr. Comfort's father. Hey, Mrs. Comfort's brother's daughter's son said to his twin brother. That's my bread you're eating. Get your fingers out of my salad, the Comfort son's daughter said to her twin sister. Don't play with your food, said the Comfort son's wife. What did you say? Asked Mr. Comfort. I said, Mrs. Comfort said. Beep, beep. A big red van parked at the curb. Out jumped Mrs. Comfort's sister with her husband and their triplets. All 3 of the triplets had brought their boyfriends, who were also triplets. Now do you see what I mean? Mrs. Comfort asked. Where are they all going to sit? Well, my dearest, said Mr. Comfort, I haven't served the spaghetti yet. We'll just move a few chairs, reset a few plates, and there will be plenty of room for everyone. I give up, cried Mrs. Comfort. She sat down in her chair and didn't budge. I say we divide the 4 pairs of tables into 8 single tables, Mrs. Comfort's brother said. He and his wife moved 1 pair of tables apart. The triplets and their boyfriends moved the other 3 pairs. You see, said Mr. Comfort, it all worked out. I see everything is back exactly the way I had it, said Mrs. Comfort. I knew you'd think of something, said Mr. Comfort. Now, how many meatballs would you like? So now we have these little pictures at the end that show how, with the exact same 8 tables, there was the optimization of area and perimeter.
All right, so let's kind of take a look at what happened with that video and what the problem was with the way Miss Comfort had put it and the way Mr. Comfort kept changing it. All right, so I want you to think of it this way. So there were 32 people that were coming to have spaghetti and meatballs, okay? And so these little squares are going to be the 8 tables that Miss Comfort put together, okay? So she had 8 tables, and the way that she did it, she put 4 people in each table. So I'm going to use some paper clips to represent the people. So there was a chair here, chair here, chair there, and a chair there, okay? And then at another table, there were 4 chairs. Okay, so I've got the rest of the paper clips. Let me move these right here. I've got the rest of the paper clips right here. I'm not going to take time to do all of them, but if I were to put 4 chairs at every table, I would be using all of those paper clips. So all of those paper clips would be in their right spots. However, what happened when some guests arrived is Mr. Comfort put together 2 tables. And when he put together 2 tables, okay, really quickly, think about this for just a second. What you know about area and perimeter. So the paper clips would represent the perimeter, and the square would represent the area. Okay, so when some guests came along, Mr. Comfort said, oh, no problem, we'll just move these together. Okay, well, what he did was he eliminated 2 chairs, and Mrs. Comfort needed all those chairs because she had 32 chairs, and that's exactly how many she needed. And then some more people came along, and he said, oh, no problem. Okay, and he did one of these things. And what he did was he eliminated more chairs to make room. And every time more people came, he moved the tables around and pulled out chairs, and those chairs were over by themselves until the very end when what happened? Of course, all of the tables and chairs went back to the way that Miss Comfort had it to begin with. And all of these chairs were at every single one of these tables, and there was enough for 32 people. I thought that was a really, really cute story. All right, so let's look at the assignment for today, okay? All right, so your assignment for today is Thinking Up, page 248. And this is it right here, Thinking Up, page 248. See if that light helps or does not help. I think it helps a little bit. Okay, page 248. So we're going to be looking here at these tiles and then at the footprints that go around to kind of introduce yourself again to area and perimeter. The first question says, how many footprints? Oh, you know what? I did have a suggestion. I had heard from a couple of students that they were having a lot of trouble going back and forth from what I'm doing here on the video and then pausing the video and going over to the worksheet on the slide and entering the answer and then going back to the video. So I would like to make a suggestion. If you can get just a scratch piece of paper this whole week, okay? If you want to get just a scratch piece of paper and you can fold it, okay? And then maybe on one of them, this is going to be thinking up page 248, okay? As I'm giving you the answers on this sheet. Now remember, you can print these off. I have as one of the resources, when you click on the work for math, you obviously open up this slide presentation, but one of the other things you can open up is a PDF of these worksheets, and you can print them at home so that you can do them with me. That actually would be, if you have the option of doing that, that would be your best option, because otherwise you're watching me work and you're not actually doing work. And you learn by watching, by reading, and by doing. So if you're just watching, you're not learning in the best way. So if you can print these, please do, okay? So what you might do, so if you print it, then you're good. I would print it, I would work on it as I'm working on it, and that would be your very best option, okay? But if you can't print it, then your other option would be to write down the answers on a piece of paper, okay, as I go, and then when you're done, go to the slide where you can enter all these answers, okay? All right, so how many footprints, let's see, I should probably read the directions. Tim walked around the tiled area in his kitchen. His foot was the same length as each tile. How many footprints did Tim make walking around the tiles? Okay, so first we're going to look at what it was to walk around. Okay, and so I'm going to look and see, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, it took him 20 footprints to walk around the tiles. All right, and then the next question says, how many footprints did Tim make on each of the short sides? Okay, so these are the short sides, okay? How many footprints on each? So not together, but on each. If it said together, it would be different. So on the short side, he did 1, 2, 3, 4. And on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many each? 4 on each side of the short sides. All right, then it asks, how many footprints did Tim make on each of the long sides? The long side, so that's going to be this one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Made 6. 6 up there and 6 down there. It was asking each, not total. Number 4, how many tiles did Tim walk around? So here are all the tiles together, okay? And how many did he walk around? How many are in here, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. There are 24 tiles that he walked around. All right, now some of you may have been thinking just the edge, okay? But it's the whole thing. All right, number 5. How many tiles are in each row? Okay, so these are rows right here. Okay, so each row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 in each row. And then how many tiles are in each column? In each column. So these are columns right here going down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 in each column. So now we're going to look. Which question represents the perimeter? Perimeter. That's the key right there. Perimeter. And so you've got to go back and look which question was actually asking about the perimeter. All right, so we know that this right here is the perimeter. And the question asking about going all the way around the rim of the kitchen was number 1. Okay, how many did he make walking around the tiles? So number 1 would be your answer. And then which one asked about area? Area is the entire thing. Which question asked about the entire thing, all of it? That would be number 4. All right, and then think about how did you use that critical thinking trait of creating in this activity? And then how did you use the critical thinking trait reflect in this activity? All right, so now at this point, whether you've done it here on the page because you were able to print it, or whether you have put the answers here on a piece of paper, okay, now you need to go and put the answers in your slide, okay? And I still have some students that are having some difficulty with this, so I thought I would just show you one more time. I have locked the background of each one of these slides because I just knew I would have students who would accidentally delete things. I've actually had students who have done that already anyways, but all right, so here is where you're going to want to put your answer for number 1 right there. And our answer for number 1 was the number 20, okay? So hopefully you realize by now you don't have to do insert and then text box. You can actually just click this little box right here, and it's going to give you an area that you are going to drag a square, and as soon as you drag, I will let go, and I can put in the answer 20. And that's all I have to do, okay? Now, I did have a student, I think I showed you this also on the science later, that changed it to purple, and I could see it a little better, and you can even make it bigger if you'd like to. Don't get carried away with all that kind of stuff because that may take a long time. All right, so that was the answer to number 1. And then number 2, you put in your answer all the way down. And then over here, you answer these questions. How did you use the critical thinking create? Put your answer there. How did you use reflect? And you're going to put your answer there. All right, boys and girls, that is our lesson for today. Just a quick introduction to area and perimeter, which should have been super easy because we have actually already done that. And maybe you can convince your parents to make some spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. Bye, sweeties. Have a good day.